All right, you guys, welcome to my podcast. It's just me now flying solo. So today I have my first guest on, which I am absolutely thrilled about. I met Chelsea through sharing an image of hers for postpartum. And we connected on Instagram. Love Instagram for that. And Chelsea, her Instagram is Chelsea Keeps It Real. But she started a movement and support system called Postpartum Together, which, by the way, Chelsea, great name.
Thank you.
Great name. That is fantastic. Yeah. Can you please tell everyone that's listening just a little bit about yourself and how you got into holding space and using your voice for postpartum support?
Yeah, I'm a mom of two, and I've had two very different experiences in my postpartum. So after my first, I was kind of that stereotypical, try to do it all, try to put out the image of being just a perfect mom. And I felt like I was always striving to put out an image. And eventually it caught up to me, and I realized I hadn't even been present in my own experience because I was trying so hard to make it look the way that I thought it was supposed to. During that time, I had, been using social media off and on for business. But again, it was still that trying to put out the right images. And then my son was about 2 when I realized, I had gone through so many changes and transitions that I didn't even give myself the space to process and acknowledge and look at all the ways that it had changed me. And so when I became pregnant with my second, that's when I got really interested in diving deep into what postpartum even is. I don't even know if I used that word in my first experience. But I started to study psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors and, people like you who are just putting this information out there that postpartum is an honorable season. And we have done such a disjustice by not providing that space for women.
Right.
And the more that I learned, the more that I knew so much would have been different for me if I had had a space with other women to process out what my experience was, from my changing body to my changing marriage to my changing mental and emotional space.
Yeah.
So I really set out to create Postpartum Together because I feel like there's so much value in bringing the postpartum season into a more communal aspect. Although it is all virtual, we have the opportunity to do it together and not feel so damn isolated all the time.
Yes. When you said hold space together with other women, I just felt myself take such a deep breath, because many of us don't have that. We don't live in communities or villages like that. We have very nuclear families. Like, we have our baby, we're either at home, we go home, we have whatever support we do or don't have around us, and that's it. And we are very, very fortunate to have social media now and to have these spaces now. Because, I don't know about you, but I'm 40. So I look back at my mom when she had us and we were young. There was nothing like that to turn to. You had support or you didn't, and you just did what your pediatrician told you to do. And it was like the suck it up buttercup type of mentality, right?
Yes.
And, people are like, oh, but we turned out fine. I'm like, but did we though? What?
Right.
I'm like,
my therapy bills say otherwise.
Yeah. All this inner healing I'm doing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it just made me take a deep breath and just feel like the warmth of that. And as you know, I have Take Back Postpartum. And I started that over 5 years ago now, when I was very, very pregnant with my youngest, because the conversation surrounding postpartum was very superficial. It was either about aesthetics, like you were saying, or it was about bouncing back. Yep. And I was like, but that's not most of our realities. Most of our realities are there's an aesthetic, but it's messy and chaotic and hard and frustrating and confusing. And most of us are not even thinking about bouncing back. Like we're thinking about making sure our kid is eating enough and pooping enough, right? Like that's what you're thinking about. So yeah, to have these voices and to have people holding space in postpartum on Instagram or Facebook or whatever has been life-changing for so many of us, don't you think?
Right, definitely. And, like you say, people have these ideas of what postpartum should be, but what I have found is that the collective voice gives people permission to have their experience as it is.
Yes.
And I think, that's something that I love so much about Take Back Postpartum and going through and seeing this mission to put more story behind all of the messy that we actually are living in this season.
Yeah. It is incredibly powerful if someone just tells a new mama or any parent how you feel is totally okay. Make space for how you feel instead of trying to change how you feel. That is so powerful in itself, and most of us are never told that. So we're trying to feel happier, we're trying to feel calmer, we're trying to feel back to ourselves, we're trying to change how we're feeling instead of just feeling like, okay, this is how I feel and I'm going to sit in this for a little bit. And that's okay that I feel this way. That's okay that I'm mourning the loss of being able to just get in the car and go do what I want to do, or have a date night whenever I want with my partner, or whatever it is you're mourning. Like your body changes. And the two main times your body changes without you having any say is puberty and postpartum. Right? And for most of us, space was not held for us during that puberty time. It was like we were finding out from friends or whatever it was. Like a lot of us were not, again, our moms didn't have social media to turn to say, hey, how do I navigate this with my kid? They didn't have that. So we were all kind of like, leading each other on these unknown charted territory paths, but nobody was a guide, right? Like there was no guide. And so, we just kind of got through it, and we didn't have a say. We didn't have a say how big or small our breasts were. We didn't have a say about if we had cramps when we had periods. We didn't have a say about our hips changing. And it's the same thing postpartum, don't you think? Like our bodies change, our hormones change, our outlook on life changes, like everything changes, and there's no way to know how it's going to change. And people have asked me, well, January, you talk about holding space to have the birth you want. Like, how do you hold space for postpartum when you don't know how it's going to go? And I'm like, that's the answer right there. You hold space for however it's going to go.
Yes. And what that tells you, what a revealing time in our lives. I don't know if you have had that experience, but my goodness, yes, adolescence, I learned and I grew and I entered awkward spaces, but this season was so refining. And you're moving into not only figuring out who you are, because you might think you know who you are, and then you have a child and you're like, whoa, there's sides of you, like the mama bear in me came out, and me wanting to break cycles in my family became a life's mission, really. So all these things kind of come out, and you're relearning who you are. Like I like to say, you're unbecoming and becoming again and again and again. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You really you look at everything differently. I know you have some programs for postpartum, and you and I were talking a little bit before this about, you've had 10 things that, you wouldn't know about postpartum until you're in it, and just different information and groups and support. And I know you have support calls and you have groups and workshops. How is that shifting right now with what we're going through globally? What are you seeing in the spaces you're holding as far as what aligns with what we already go through postpartum, and then what's feeling different?
Yeah, for the women.
Yes.
In this space.
Yes. Yeah. Right now with all this, Corona, COVID.
Yeah, right. So like you said earlier, we hold the space by knowing that everything is unexpected. Exactly. It's different in postpartum, right?
Yes.
So now, I ache for women knowing that, yes, that foundational we all experience hit the fan, it's all different, is there. But now in this particular season, it's even more exponential.
Yes.
And I'm hearing that there's so many more stressors right now. There are so many more uncertainties.
Yes.
And you hear it from both ways. There's this like, I actually get to relax in this season when I was made to relax, which I think is such a beautiful part of this picture, right?
It's a silver lining.
Right. We know that around the world, a lot of women are given this space to rest and restore, and postpartum is honored as this season. But right now, women also have a lot of those supports stripped of them. Yeah. So they have, maybe it's financial stability. Maybe it's their parents aren't able to come visit. Maybe their birth experience is absolutely rocked because they pictured having a photographer and a doula and their partner. And these things are all different. So we see everything flipped on its head right now. And women are just craving connection and craving just knowing that it's going to be okay.
And it's interesting that we have all been working so hard in these spaces the last decade to have options and to have support and to be respected and to have rights and to have all this stuff. And with what's going on right now, it can feel very scary that all that hard work is like kind of going out the window right now to keep everyone safe. But that's incredibly frustrating. And I just want to say that if you are finding yourself pregnant or early postpartum, and you mentioned this too earlier, like it's okay to grieve and mourn the loss of what you thought your experience would be.
Right.
Like, that's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. You don't have to just make yourself okay with everything.
And I think that even right now, women are hearing the like, oh, well, just be grateful that you're healthy, or just be grateful that the baby's healthy, which, yes, we find a lot of gratitude, but they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah. Mourning and gratitude are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, you're allowed to feel two things at the same time.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I love that.
Yeah, I want women to feel that freedom.
Yes.
Permission to feel whatever they need to feel to be present in this space.
Right. Yeah, I agree completely. So you had shared with me that you went through 6 months of social distancing because one of your little ones was immunocompromised. Do you see similarities between what you went through and other families that go through that on a regular basis and kind of what we're going through globally? I'm sure part of you is like, now you know what it's like. We went through this for half a year and nobody respected it. That's one thing my friend Emily tweeted this, I think, but she was saying never before have so many people been understanding about what you're going through. So at least there's like this collective understanding what we're going through. But share a little bit about that social distancing you guys went through and like maybe some similarities or maybe some things that helped you during that time.
Yeah. So I feel like this is what I love is that I have some insight of being in a different world situation. But so our daughter was born at the end of October, right at the peak of flu season, and we knew she would need open heart surgery, and they wanted her to make it to 5 or 6 months. So that meant our winter was a lot of canceled plans or changed plans or adaptations. I have pictures of our family members with our daughter, so that's a little bit different. Some people are not even getting that opportunity, but they were wearing a mask and like a little gown to cover because we had to prioritize health over a lot of even emotions and, boundaries were so important. And I think that right now a lot of people are dealing with this, like trying to emotionally satisfy other people, but our first and foremost is safety of ourselves, safety of our kids. And what we found that was really helpful in that time, one, like get the groceries delivered, get like all the delivery things you can do.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
If you're comfortable with Meal Train, like I know that one of the beautiful things about Meal Train is coming in and being with mom and baby, but like this is boundary season.
Yes.
And you say, the cooler's on the porch, leave it there. The disinfectant spray is there, spray it down, take your stuff, and send us a picture afterwards.
Right?
So, we got used to things like FaceTime, and Marco Polo is like our favorite because you just video chat to people and you don't have to respond right away. But that was a great way for our kids to connect with our family, for us to stay in touch with friends. We couldn't send our older son to preschool during that time because kids are germ buckets.
Yes.
So for us, that was a lot of frustration because, gosh, a break would have been nice. Like going out to a place would have been great, but it also was a lot of slowing down, and it was a lot of figuring out what relationships were going to survive and being okay with the friendships that just didn't fit in that season anymore. And I just talked with my group about this last night. We just did a week on our changing identity and our changing friendships, and knowing that it's okay for some relationships to not sustain a changing season. And that's not something you've done wrong. It's not something they've done wrong. It's just not the best use of energy anymore.
I love that you shared that. I love that you shared that because, especially women, our friendships mean a lot to us. And sometimes we hold on too tight when we should let go. And then that's where the miscommunication starts and the issues start, instead of just recognizing that, okay, friendships have seasons as well. And that's okay. And, you can love someone even if you're not talking to them all the time. That's a really, really good point. I'm glad that you brought that up. So accepting meals, dropping them off outside, delivery services, different seasons, different friendships, and definitely technology. I've used Zoom for a while for this kind of thing, but right now I can't even imagine how many people are using it, which I think is great.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And for I've been sober for 2 years, and I talk about my sobriety journey. And I've never been to a meeting, which I know kind of seems wild, but I have never been to a meeting. And this all started happening, and I started feeling very like isolated, and like I needed some more support. And so I was invited to an AA meeting on Zoom. And I'm like, how amazing is that? And I've seen women and friends getting on Zoom or something similar like that and having like a hangout and chatting. Like get your morning coffee and hop on FaceTime with a friend right now. And you get to have that adult conversation without anyone having to worry about anyone getting sick. And you're staying connected, because especially early postpartum, like you just need to have another friend or adult that's not in your home sometimes to talk to. Because you might look at your partner to like save you, but they're in the same boat you are with all the same holes. Like you're both like sinking, Yeah. So,
and it's kind of putting us all on a similar playing field right now when we have so many people who are working from home and their kids aren't in school, and everyone has had this huge shift of schedule. So I remember specifically with my first, I would stress out about my house. Like, is my house clean for guests?
Yes.
One, I don't know why we stress about that. Like, you're the last person that needs to stress about it when you're early postpartum or ever. But two, here we are now all in the same playing field. So if you're going to Zoom call your friend, they're probably also living in a new source of chaos, which I would hope would be this kind of new comforting connection for a postpartum mom.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Again, it goes back to like everyone is kind of understanding what everyone's going through right now.
Yes.
And postpartum moms don't usually have that as a collective understanding. It's kind of like life goes on. And especially in the US, there's paternity leave is almost non-existent. Maternity leave is just about the same. It's no better. There's not a lot of time to slow down or to be together. And so why we have maybe a little bit more of that right now, we also have new challenges right now too. But like you're saying, other people are going to be understanding of what you're going through. And I think when you're pregnant, when you're birthing, when you're postpartum, it's like you just want people to understand what you're going through. Like, this is literally life-changing for you. A human being came out of your body or came into your family in a different way, and that's completely life-altering and changing. And to get understanding and support for that is very hard in our culture. So to have that right now, hopefully have that right now. I hope people are experiencing that, where other people are really understanding, like, oh my gosh, you just had a baby. What can we drop off? Do you need toilet paper? Like, do you need, like, I'm hoping that people, I mean, you're holding a lot more space in this area right now. What are you seeing? As far as, is there more support? Is there more support coming for new moms right now because of people understanding that they're a new parent, but everything's kind of shutting down and they're, not able to get out as much, or maybe not able to find baby wipes, things like that? Are you seeing like the support step up for postpartum parents?
Mm-hmm. And yes, I am. Okay. And, specifically in this digital virtual space, I think so many places are forced now to say, how do I take down barriers? How do I make this easier for people? Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing all around me, these organizations or individuals who work with postpartum are thinking, how do I get creative? How do I offer this support? Maybe they're not having the same kind of birth prep or visitations or things in the hospital that were happening before. Mm-hmm. So people really are stepping in to this space, and the same way, like you mentioned, toilet paper, baby wipes, or diapers, I think we're all in this boat of, holy cow, I can't just go to the store when I want to, or, I have all of these changes. So I think people are more apt right now to think about other people that have had big life changes and to see the roadblocks that exist. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're right, like, I think a lot of people forget those early days of postpartum.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You just keep going. You move through, you get into a new season, and you forget that can take 2 hours to make a 10-minute trip to the store.
Oh my gosh,
or,
yes.
Everything you do is so laborious.
Yeah.
And now, in this season with a lot more complications, there's also I think a more communal awareness.
Yes, that's it right there.
Just how difficult things can be.
That's communal awareness. I love that. You're so good with words.
I don't even know where those came from.
That was fantastic. I think it's just our energy right now. We're just so on it. And then you had mentioned to me too how right now a lot more, especially women, are having their partners home right now. Like postpartum. So there's pros and cons to that right now. What are you seeing in that space?
Yes. So I'm seeing that specifically with some people that I work with who are maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 months after baby.
Okay.
And what we're seeing there is that this is a whole schedule change all of a sudden for a lot of people overnight. So maybe there was a partner at home who had a schedule, who had a rhythm, and now someone's trying to have space to hold calls in the middle of the day in the quiet. Maybe 2 people had their working schedule and they just had this rhythm, and now the whole rhythm is disrupted. And I see that we're under more stress, right? So I think you speak to this, like we are operating under our sympathetic system.
Yes.
Our sympathetic nervous system more than our parasympathetic. So we're in this like reactionary fight or flight state. And in the home, we're here in the home in a small space with our partner under new circumstances, and tension is really high right now.
Yeah.
People are learning how to work or not work, or keep the kids quiet, or keep the kids entertained, or who has the kids win, because we're both trying to get this stuff done in the home space. Yeah. So communication is more vital than ever before.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everyone's trying to figure out how to operate in this new normal, whether they're coming home with a baby for the first time or they've already established a rhythm that's now completely turned on its head.
There's 2 things that I always talk about as well, which really apply in this situation. And the first is, do not get into a misery match with your partner.
Oh, yeah.
right? It's so easy to get into misery matches. Like, well, I'm more tired than you are, but I gave birth, but it's like you're both in the trenches together. So try not to get into misery matches because it just takes you down a path that leaves everyone frustrated and hurt. And the second thing is every time you have a baby or every time your baby or toddler hits a new stage, you have to shift your expectations. Yes. You have to many times you have to take your expectations, roll them up into a ball and throw them out the window, right? And you have to start from scratch. And I think that's where a lot of families are right now. Postpartum already gives you that. But then with everything that's going on right now, I think there needs to be a lot of shifting expectations. And routines and the way your family flows, your ebb and flow, that already is going to change under normal circumstances. And the more you fight it, the more frustrated you're going to get. And so right now is a time where you need to flow. And even if that means creating a new schedule because you're a schedule-oriented person, that's okay. Right. But know that it's okay to shift that whole schedule. And if you're a schedule person, have your schedule, but shift it and shift the expectations right now. Yeah. I think those are very, very relevant right now, don't you?
Yeah. I do. And I do postpartum planning workshops and just help women. I'm really passionate about the taboo topics. I don't have these people in place or have your birth plan or whatever, but let's talk about how shit gets real here. Yes. And one of the big things that I talk about in these workshops is thinking about the different roles that you and your partner take on when you have a baby. So I think this pertains to this transition too. Sure, you have your romantic role, like what you learned and you had before baby, and things just kind of, were just flowing that way. But you have a baby, and now you have almost like a business role because you have a business project, which is this baby that you're both working to research and figure out how it works and do the steps to keep everything going. And so now we have people, again, in the home together or in these changed seasons with all the changes going on in our country, in our world. And so I think it's important, too, to think about, what roles are we taking on together? Are we coworkers during this hour? How are we splitting up the duties in the home? How are we splitting up the duties with the baby? And how do we purposely and intentionally make space for that romantic relational connection? And it almost seems silly to say right now we're business partners, right now we're romance.
Sometimes you have to do that though.
You have to. I mean, I have to.
With 6 kids, we have to.
It all goes out the window for us. So
same here. And that, again, that's kind of basically having clear communication about expectations. Because if you're only having the conversation in your head, then you're going to misfire constantly. You guys have the conversation out loud with your partner. And I also want to touch on single parents right now, especially with all the schools being closed and you're working from home. Hopefully you're able to work from home, or you're not able to work and you've got your kids at home and your whole life has been upended right now. Please give yourself so much grace. If you're having to work from home and you don't have a partner or a support person, it's okay if your child watches Disney Plus for a while. That's okay. It's going to be all right. And if anybody tells you otherwise, that's one of those seasonal friends that need to leave your space. Right. Yeah. So give yourself lots of grace. Yes. And, postpartum, the reason why we actually jumped on to do this episode, you guys, is because I saw a post on Instagram by you recently. Actually, I think it's your most recent post right now, but talking about how postpartum and in motherhood specifically can be very, very lonely. Very lonely. One of the main things that women have told me over the years why they follow me on Instagram is because they just feel less alone. And it's just really, really powerful just to make someone not feel alone. And so right now with social distancing, it can feel even more isolating and more lonely. So have you seen anyone sharing some just tips or ideas or thoughts on that you have thought have been spectacular?
Yeah. So I wanted to start with reiterating, what I have seen is this increase in the conversation of this is lonely. Yeah. So just kind of normalizing that, right? At all times. Yes. And now specifically, this feels lonely. And, I think, one, there is a cool opportunity to get to know ourselves a little bit better, to get to know the people in our home, even our babies. Like there's a lot that we can take and learn from them. But these like voice messages and video messages are imperative right now. Finding those ways to see someone's face, whether it's, a Zoom call, a group. There are a lot of these groups popping up and making their way. And I know that you are an advocate for this too, but I am always encouraging women to be really intentional about their intake. Be so intentional, especially right now, about what images and words and comparisons that you are bringing into your intake, because that can so escalate loneliness when you are in those depths of feeling like you're doing it worse or you're not doing it good enough or someone else is really exceeding right now and you're not. I think that is the number one culprit of loneliness is this comparison and feeling like we're not doing it right or enough.
Yeah. So being like hyper aware of what you're taking in right now. Because I have 6 kids, so this is already on my mind just like everybody else. But if I had a baby, I would have to be even more careful with the stories I read or what I watch or who I follow on Instagram or Facebook, like very, very careful. Like we've seen floating around, I've shared it before too over the years of if you follow anyone who makes you feel like you're not doing enough, unfollow them or whatever it is. And that's really relevant right now too. Like if you don't have to unfollow, you can like mute people's stories, you can mute their posts, you can unfollow, but you don't have to unfriend, and just kind of make your space. Not like, this isn't about putting your head in the sand. We're all very aware of what's going on. This is protecting your mental health and your mental space right now, which is already a delicate time anyways with mental health. And it'd be really easy to spiral. So be hyper aware of what you're taking in your space, who you're letting around in your space. We already feel this way under normal circumstances, right? Of course, this is what we tell women all the time, but right now be very, very, very hyper aware of it. And I think, like, I agree with you. When somebody texts me, not messages me on Instagram, but somebody who has my phone number actually texts me to say, hey, I just want to check in on you. Like, how are you feeling right now? It means the world. It means so much, because like you and me, like we hold space for so many people that a lot of times the people holding space don't have anyone that holds space for them. It's kind of an ongoing just dilemma we face sometimes. And I have really opened myself up to a lot of friendships and a lot of just wonderful people over the last year. And now some of those people are checking in with me, and it just means so much to me. And they're offering to help. And that offer I know is genuine. Like, it's not just a surface offer. Like, oh, do you need any help? And they're hoping I'm like, no, I'm good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that person, they actually are like, I will go and find toilet paper and mail it to you right now, and they would actually do it, and I've had 1 or 2 friends that have sent me care packages right now, and I like sob when I open them, because it means so much. Somebody sends me like a really nice coffee and like some dried fruit and whatever it is, and it's meant so much. So if you do know like a new parent that's going through everything that we're all going through, or maybe going through it even more, they don't have a lot of support right now, just doing like a little, I loved making postpartum bin for myself after my last kiddo, and then making postpartum bins, like if I was invited to a mother's blessing or a baby shower, like, putting just like some snacks and treats and, some affirmations and maybe a little onesie for the baby, and like making these little postpartum bins. And if you live local to someone, and dropping it off at their house and just texting them like, hey, I dropped something off for you, or mailing it to them if you don't live by them. And when we have postpartum conversations with new moms, and I talk about changing this conversation all the time, I know you do too, but just like, don't ask me if my baby's sleeping through the night. Right? Like ask me how I'm doing. My baby's fine because I'm taking care of my baby, but who's taking care of me? Right? Yeah. And so changing that conversation, of checking in with mom is even heightened right now. Like check in with mom, see how she's doing. And if she gives you, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, be like, I'm sending you something. If you have a request, tell me now, because I'm sending you something either way.
But January, you used some language that one of my clients just used last night was, I opened myself up. And I think that as women,
Yeah.
We are caretakers, we are givers, and we have such a hard time receiving help and
yes.
being okay with not being so self-sufficient all the time.
Yeah.
And, I think this is such a cool season where the stakes are kind of low about opening ourselves up to people and to maybe finding a friend that wouldn't have necessarily been the person we connected prior to social distancing.
Right.
Maybe it's a different vibe or, someone we just didn't expect. But this is such a cool time to open ourselves up to receive friendship, to receive someone caring and going deeper. Because we're not going to run into them at the school pickup for
That's
a couple
so true.
months. So you might as well go deep and take some risks.
I love that. That's so true. Anyone who offers me help right now, I'm like, yep. Because I know we need it. I know we need it right now. This has been affecting our chiropractic office for 3 weeks. It's going to keep affecting it for a little while. And I was opening a few events and I had to put that on pause. And so, I know it's affecting us and I know it's affecting so many people. So if somebody's in a position to help and they offer, take it. Absolutely take it right now. And you're right. We're probably all okay with being a little more vulnerable right now. That vulnerability, it's like we can let our shields down a little bit and accept that help or ask for that help. And people want to help each other right now. It's beautiful. Right. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So to any woman who maybe is currently pregnant and thinking about their postpartum or they're recently postpartum, I say write down 10 things, 10 ways that someone can help you so that you don't get a text and you're like, oh no, I'm fine, just to answer it right away. Like, make a list so that these are 10 ways people can help me because, one, we need the help. Yeah. We do, and that's normal and good, and that's part of this process. Yeah. And two, if that person's asking, give them the opportunity to help now.
Don't keep them from being able to do that, right? They want to.
So make a list. Yes. Make it easy for your brain to just go to that list and not have to think about it in the moment. Mm-hmm. And know these are some ways that someone can help me right now.
Yeah. And, you can literally do things like I need water and trail mix or granola. And that can be something. Or if it's somebody you want to talk with, I need a FaceTime chat over my coffee. Or, I don't know. What are some things you would put on a list right now?
Well, yeah, so those are really great practical things. I just had a conversation with a friend and kind of tried to make this mutual contract of asking, hey, do you have the emotional capability right now for me to unload?
Yes, I do that with my friends too.
I think we don't want to put our baggage on other people, so we hold it in, but I think it's okay to ask for permission. I need to get this out. Do you have the space for me to emotionally unload right now?
Yes. I love that.
So that would be on my list.
Yes, I love that.
Having that capability too.
I do that with my friends right now too, especially other empaths. I'm like, are you in a space right now? Or I'll tell them I'm in a space right now. Or if I'm not in a space and they reach out to me, I'll be like, can we chat tomorrow? And they'll be like, yeah, sure. And then we connect tomorrow because I know that I'm in a space of recharging tonight or whatever it is. I love that. That's a great idea. So asking people if they're in the space to vent, maybe dropping off some snacks.
Snacks are never a bad thing.
You can never go wrong with snacks. I am 5 years postpartum. If any of you want to send me snacks, I will give you a good mailing address and you can send me snacks. I think Chelsea would go for that too, right?
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
I love that. I love that so much.
Especially the ones I have to hide from my toddler.
That's always the best ones.
Snacks, yes.
So I know that you have support calls right now and you have support groups. Can you tell me just kind of some of the support stuff you have right now for people who are in my community that are finding you because of this podcast? Can you share some of that you have going on?
Yes. So right now I'm teamed up with maybe 10 other people. Some of them run postpartum centers. Some are individuals. But we're just trying to make a free space for specifically women who are having their anxiety and depression triggered right now in the season. Mm-hmm. So that is the mom support group. Yeah. And it's just a Zoom call. People kind of get it out and normalize. And again, that's just a peer free collaborative group that we are having right now as a response to the pandemic and people's emotional reaction to that.
I love that. That's fantastic.
So I also hold my quarterly postpartum together groups, and that is a small group, a 10-week curriculum where we go and process through the different aspects. So we spend a whole week processing the actual physical changes and then the implications of those, our relational changes, our identity changes, really going through what has happened and what is happening and how to normalize that in a small group and move forward empowered because we actually address these transitions. So I have another group coming up in April.
Okay, good timing.
And then just workshops popping up here and there. I'm working on 2 specifically right now. So a virtual postpartum planning workshop. And then I'm working on a back in the sack workshop. So specifically addressing that postpartum sex world.
Yes. That's amazing.
So those are 2 things that'll be coming up
I love that.
on Teachable once I get the time.
Yes, right?
This season is a lot of changes.
Yeah, a lot of changes for all of us. And I'll put all of Chelsea's information in the show notes so you know exactly where to find her on there. Is there any last tips or just words of wisdom that you would want to give a postpartum parent right now?
Yeah, I think you have permission for this to be a messy season in every way. And messy is not the opposite of beautiful. Messy is not the opposite of good. Messy is parts of life.
It is.
And I guess I wish someone had really ingrained in me that permission for things to be messy after my first. And putting off an image really doesn't serve
anyone
what's going on inside. And that is what's such a huge part of what we carry over and the foundation we lay for our family and our kids.
I love that. And I'll just tack on to that. Well, first of all, messy can be fun too, right? Messy can be fun. It can be chaotic, it can be hard, and it can also be fun. And I just want to add on there, one of my quotes that's been shared the most is one of my postpartum quotes about how postpartum is years of unbecoming and becoming again. And so if you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going through postpartum right now, it still applies. It's years. And everything we go through is temporary. Everything. The only thing that is constant really is change. So everything you're going through is temporary right now in your pregnancy, postpartum, and what's going on in our world globally right now.
Right.
And so that still applies. Give yourself permission for it to be messy, and know that postpartum is years. It's not just a few months anyways. And so maybe your first few months of postpartum are going to be part of what's going on globally, but you're also going to have many years of postpartum once this settles down. And you can give yourself permission to feel however you feel about it now, and then to do your postpartum how you want when you don't have to self-isolate anymore. Right? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. And I loved this conversation. I am so passionate about postpartum. People always ask me if I would ever do doula work, and it would be in postpartum if I did. I think being able to hold space for women and parents when you're going through one of the biggest life changes you've ever gone through is needed. And it's wonderful. So thank you for doing that for all of your mamas and your families, and for sharing some of your wisdom today.
Well, same. This is like a beautiful full circle for me, because your account was one of the first that gave me that freedom.
No way.
Changed my life.
I actually did not know that. So that is so cool. Yes. That is so neat. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. And when I started Take Back Postpartum, there wasn't a lot of, and Birth Without Fear, there really wasn't a lot like that at the time, at least on the scale that they are on. And to see all of these beautiful people using their voices and using their platforms to do the work that you do just makes me so, so happy, because the more the merrier. We need it all.
Right.
We need it all. So,
for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Chelsea. We'll all see you on Instagram, and hopefully some of us in your workshops. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And if you love this episode and want to see the unedited video version, you can check that out, plus other bonus podcast, that's hard to say, bonus podcast content on my Patreon. My Patreon is just my name, January Hershey. You can search for it, or we will have the link in the show notes. Until next time, love ya.